Last time we discussed about distribution, periodic reposting, assessment, and indirect activity allocation. And we discussed about the difference between all these three. I'll be sharing this document with you. Okay. So direct activity allocation, it is used for calculating actual quantities of activity consumed by receiving C object. Now, activity can be like any activity that can be materialized or calculated. That is an activity. It can be a manufacturing activity or it can be something auxiliary like lunch or dinner at cafeteria or cost center will be allocated to different cost centers. Actual quantities like hours or number of employees going for activity lunch consumed by receiving by production cost center. This allocation happens as and when an activity type is consumed by receiving C object. So this is not periodic. And KB21N is the key code. This is the cost center setup we'll be using. Okay. Body shop, assembling, paint shop, cafeteria, cost collector, plant maintenance, quality control, plant admin. Okay. So we'll have to check whether we have made all these or not. So this was allocations. Now comes assessment. Cost center cafeteria is used by other cost centers as shown in the table. Allocation method that is used is assessment. And SKF, statistical key figure. Now, what is statistical? Is the metric to measure the activity so that we can transfer to cost centers the number of the activity. Okay. So this is basically unit uh, unit of measure SKF, which is called SKF in SAP. That is just statistical key figure. So this is unit of measure, nothing complex. So number of employees is the allocation criteria. So cafeteria charges will be allocated based on number of employees. So cost center cafeteria has 5 employees. So other employees will be joining from other cost centers. So cost center 101 is sending 75 workers to cafeteria for lunch. 103 sending 75, 108 sending 20, 109 sending 25. So you will be allocating all the lunch expense from cafeteria to these cost center except for this one. Okay. Periodic reposting, as I told you, it is for simplifying FI postings. And for that, we use one unified cost collector cost center. We can post costs like rent, electricity charges to cost collector during the period. At period end, we allocate to 3 production cost centers using allocation method. Periodic reposting. Rent is to be allocated based on percentage basis. Electricity charges are allocated based on number of units. Okay. So rent and electricity both are separate elements. So rent will be allocated on percentage while electricity will be based on units, measurement units of electric units, which is the SKF. Okay. So 106 collects the rent and electricity and records electricity and then throws it and distributes it, reposts it. It is already posted in FI, but it is posting back into COO through 3 cost centers based on percentage and electricity units. Okay. So 101 will get 50% of rent. It will bear 50% of the rent, while 102 and 3 will bear 30% and 20%. Distribution. What is distribution? It is basically cost center plant admin takes care of three production cost centers. Costs like salaries of admin department, stationary charges, vehicle maintenance, travel expenses are recorded in the cost center. Okay. So plant admin cost center is absorbing three expenses like salaries of admin, stationery, and vehicle maintenance and traveling expenses. So it is recorded in this cost center. At the end of the period, we allocate all these costs to three production cost centers using allocation method distribution. So salaries, stationery charges, vehicle maintenance, traveling expense will be allocated. So salaries will go for number of employees and stationary charges, vehicle maintenance, traveling expenses are allocated based on percentage. So what is the percentage over here? Plant admin will collect all the salaries and these charges. And the receiving cost centers are 101, 102, 103. Salaries will be based on number of employees. That's the measuring unit. Over here in stationary charges, vehicle maintenance, travel expenses, it will be based on percentages. Okay. So this is basically a major part of your product costing where you have to allocate cost and transfer to production cost centers. Indirect activity. This is a bit complex scenario, not that complex, but it's a little technical. You have to actually get understanding. Cost center. Quality control gives quality check service to three production cost centers. Okay. So there is a quality control cost department, which is represented by a cost center, and it gives quality checking service to three production cost centers. So activity type is testing hours. The hours spent in testing the units or inventory or tested material, yeah, which is to be sent to three production cost centers. Quantity of testing hours is allocated based on number of tested items. Quantity of tested hours is allocated based on number of tested items. So what are we doing here? We are basically allocating testing hours per hour based on the quantity that was tested during these hours. So allocated activities tested hours, which is the activity. And allocation basis is the unit of measurement is test items, number of test items. Allocation method used is indirect activity calculation. Okay. It's a little different, a little complex, but not that. No rocket science. Direct activity allocation, what is that? Cost center, plant maintenance gives maintenance to three production cost centers. Okay. So activity type here is maintenance hours to be allocated to three production cost centers. Actual quantity of major is recorded in receiving cost center when the services are consumed. So allocated activity type is maintenance hours. And allocation method used is direct activity allocation. So how is it allocated? Directly based on the consumption of hours. Actual quantity of hours. Over here we had hours against counting of quantity. That's why it's indirect. Based on quantity, we will cost hours, which will then be sent to cost center. But over here, it's maintenance hours, how many consumed, and it is given directly to the cost centers. So allocation by assessment. Statistical key figures, which is unit of measurement, is used as a basis allocate cost from one cost center to another. Total number of employees in three cost centers is 300. Cafeteria charges are to be shared between three cost centers based on number of employees. Okay. So based on that, cafeteria will post the charges. It will post the charges through allocation in three cost centers based on number of employees. And the primary cost elements have basically incurred and recorded salaries, because number of employees uh, coming to the cafeteria basically will be recorded, and it will allocate the cost from the cost centers. Cost incurred 45,000 and rent 27,000. Total cafeteria charges is 72,000. So salaries paid by cafeteria and the rent it has to pay. Okay, that will be total cafeteria charges. So the allocation will be based on number of employees by total number of employees. And based on that, 101 will get 18,000 to pay, and so on. Okay. So the cafeteria charges are balanced by all the cost centers and distributed. Okay. So this is the summary. Okay. And this is what each of the cost. You cannot actually make out how many hours or how many employees were used here. It is a summary. Okay. It gives only the total that the receiving cost center is receiving. Okay. So this is the summary. And based on the number of employees, the allocation is done, but the summarized details are given here. Okay. I hope this was clear to you.